I see. Okay, yeah, I know who's the guy, but I don't know him.
Do you know where?
Ah, come. Yes. Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody again. My name is Stephan Luterman, and I'm happy to be here and to share some of my experiences in singing outside the box. Today and yesterday we already heard some examples of singing outside the box, especially of singing and scenic performance, or let's say singing and movement. Within the last, or let's say 5 years, I was able to realize some projects in singing and scenic performance with different productions in Germany. And I would like to show you some examples today and maybe look a little bit closer to the aspect of singing and movement and what is singing actually and what is movement. Because when you talk about that, you realize that everyone has its own opinion what it could be. But it would be, I think, good to take a closer look at it. For me, there was a special moment when I began opening the box. When I realized there's something behind or the box, or let's say there could be something else. And this moment was not planned. I was just jumping into it. In 2013, the Opera House of Osnabrück, the place where I live, asked me to do the rehearsals for the choir of a scenic realization of St. John's Passion by Johann Sebastian Bach. I agreed, but to be honest, I was a little bit skeptical because I thought Opera House, St. John's Passion, okay, it's something like an opera, and with modern instruments, and the choir was not really Baroque trained, and so on. But I said, yeah, let's try and see what happens. And the rehearsals went on more than half a year. We were musically rehearsing, and then of course the scenic rehearsal were starting, and yes, there was this moment at the general rehearsal. I was watching the whole scene from the audience room, and there was this special moment. It started right after this moment you see here, after the crucifixion of Jesus. And there was this moment in the scene where Jesus was taken from the cross. And in this realization, nobody wanted to take care of the corpus taken from the cross. It was taken, but everyone felt too busy. They were passing by with shopping bags, and they just left the corpus with someone who was by accident taken it. And the music for this scene was Zerfließe mein Herz, the soprano aria. And I was deeply touched when I saw this scene, because there was a very emotional singing of this aria. I'm sure you know, or everybody knows this aria. And on the other hand, there was this hard, realistic image of our modern life. Everyone was too busy, had no time. And this moment really touched me and almost made me cry. And when I went home, I was at home, and I thought, why this moment was possible to touch me that deeply? And the second question was, how is it possible to reproduce such a moment again? And this, to be honest, was my personal opening the box. Unfortunately, I can't show you the whole moment or the whole aria because I don't have a recording of it. But I can show you just a little bit of the trailer of this production, and maybe you get just impression of what I'm talking about. I'm trying to show it to you. No. Okay, there it is.
No, it's the wrong.
That's the wrong one. Okay, wait. There's another one. Okay. I'm not good at it. No, this is the aria. Just short impression. Okay.
I will do it.
Yeah.
You will tell.
Okay. So we're talking about singing and scenic performance today, and of course, talking about this topic evokes some other questions, which could be, what are we talking about, singing and scenic performance, or why should I do that, or where can be, where should I do that, and at least, what do I need to do that? So let's start with what are we talking about. Talking about singing, of course, you all know what singing is about, but I would like to split singing into 3 sections. First one, singing is emotion. You know, emotions are explained as to be a pressure from inside to the outside, which becomes manifested in a sensible and visible gesture. So when we are singing, we are putting our emotions to the outside to show it to somebody else. Emotions move us. For example, there are some I don't know the English word, Redensarten, wie sagt man das? Weiß jemand? Speeches. Yes. Okay, some phrases like, I have no stomach for something, or to learn something by heart, which describes that emotions have a reaction, a physical reaction. So emotions move us. And so you can say singing is movement. For example, we need a first impulse to start singing, and our body moves when we sing. We evoke physical resonance from the audience during singing. So singing is already movement. Talking about movement, I would like to look back to the origin of the word, which is from Greek, the ancient Greek, and kinesis, the Greek word for movement, describes what we are talking about. So the noun kinesis means motion, vibration, or agitation. And the verb kinein means to carry something forward, to attract, to start something. And philosophical speaking, it means change or the transition between modes of being. I think this is important to know it for speaking of movement. Let's take a closer look what movement could be in music. Music is movement because the movement of the instrumentalists, of the singers, the sound vibration is already movement. So you can say music is movement. And movements results out of music, and music evokes movement. There's somebody, a German called Timmermann. He said, "It is impossible to hear music without any physical reaction." It's impossible. Yeah? Even if you sit very still, there is a physical reaction. Maybe you get a goose flash, or your heartbeat goes faster or slower, anything. It evokes movement. And even the sound, or the Greek word phone, is invisible movement. And what does movement mean for us today? Spatial, social, virtual, and informational flexibility determines our life. And physical movement was first removed by machines and finally conducted to virtuality. And in addition to that, humans are moved by machines, cars, trains, and planes. And therefore, fitness and wellness are terms for a society which is on a low level of physical activity and is seeking for compensation. I think we could all agree to that. This is just a state of the situation we are all in. And to summarize all this, you can say flow is the paradigm of modern life. There's Zygmunt Bauman, who was talking of a liquid modernity. And he divided this term, or this description of modern life, liquid modernity, into three sections. First section, the fluxus movement. Fluxus movement means our life is always in transition. We are no longer here and not yet there. For example, the connection of artistic genres is also a fluxus movement. So this is also something which describes our modern life. We are always in transition. Yeah? Another thing, floatiness of gender roles. Of course, we know women and men, but also there are different shades of gender roles nowadays. And of course, surfing, the internet, or to say the augmented reality, are typical things which describes the flow or the liquid modernity. And to summarize all those things, music and to say movement derives from the same origin, the human body. So there is already everything connected in our own body. And in Greek antiquity, the aesthetic unit for music, movement, and poetry was musike. And musike describes what is already inside us, the language, the music by singing, and of course the movement. In the Greek antiquity, they had a place where they did their ritual with singing and dancing and poetry. It was choros. Choros is the ancient word for the place where the dance and the singing was taking place. And it is our origin of choir, or the German word chor, or chór in Polish language. So this is the origin of everything. But within the following decades and centuries, this connection and this aesthetic unit was divided again. So singing was a part, movement was a part, dancing became its own genre, and also poetry. It wasn't connected anymore. So let's see, why should I do that? Before I start to talk about that, I would like to show you another example of a production I did several years ago. When I was asked to do the St. John's Passion, which I just showed you a little extract, I met a choreographer from Berlin, Lars Scheibner, who was the first one who did scenical production with the Berlin Rundfunkchor, the radio choir of Berlin. And almost 10, 11 years ago, the manager of the Berlin Rundfunkchor, Hans-Hermann Rehberg, he was thinking of how he could gain more audience for their a cappella concerts, because they were their a cappella concerts were of low interest of the audience, and he thought he has to do something. So he asked the choreographer to do something with the choir, and they did the first production. And I think, don't know whether you know, but the choir has already done a lot of production. Just yesterday, they did a new production together with Robert Wilson from this famous regisseur. And yes, I got to know with Lars Scheibner, and I also did some other productions with him. And one of them was the Brahms Requiem, Deutsches Requiem by Johannes Brahms. And I would like to show you the trailer of this production to give you an impression what I am talking about. Let me see. Is this the right way? Oh, sorry. Yeah. This production was for a choir and a solo dancer. So the girl who was dancing, she was a real dancer. She wasn't singing, but the choir was singing and moving at the same time. And it was the version not of, as you heard, not with orchestra, but for two pianos and kettle drums by Heinrich Poos. And this was the version which made us able to do it, because I think it might have been difficult with the orchestra. Okay, why should I do that? Of course, it has an effect on the audience. As we already heard when the presentation of the Eurochoirs 2017 was made, when you do such a project in singing outside the box, you have to think of what you would gain out of it. Of course, it leads to attractiveness for the audience. And there's a survey by Concerti Classic Studio 2016 who brought to light that the younger generation under 50, doesn't see any borders between the genres. Their taste is a mix of styles. This is, I think, very important to know your audience and emotions, of course. The surveys also says that to be part of live concerts is necessary for their life. It touches them emotionally like nothing else. And this is the difference between listening to an MP3 or YouTube or Facebook video, because this is just artificial. But if you go to a real concert, a live concert, you physically feel and experience the emotions of the artists. And of course, creating third space, which is very important. You need to create a place where performer and audience meet. This was a fight which was in the middle of the last century already, because, for example, Paul Hindemith was fighting for the third space. He complained and he said, we need real concerts. He fought for concerts. He was fighting the concerts as they were. He said, we don't need those concerts anymore. Let's blow up concert halls. And he wanted a place where the listener can participate in a performance physically. And of course, it has effects on the choir, musical effects, like singers are much more sensitized to each other, because scenic realizations does only work when the choir is moving, acting as one organism. The focus on group feeling enriches the quality of sound, and the emphasis on emotions helps to send a message to the audience. So, movement during singing or scenic realization could help to put strong emotions on the stage, and even for the singers, it's easier to feel the emotions. Of course, when you are working with a choir, you always try to give them imaginations or pictures how to enrich the music. And if you are allowed to move, it's easier for them to do it. Just a short excursus. When I was working with my new ensemble called Choreos, I will explain that later to you. We were working on a piece called The Tiger by B. Tommy Anderson, and we were working on this piece scenically. When we done it and we were almost satisfied with it, we needed to do it just in choir formation without movement, because in our production we sing this piece twice, once without movement and once in a scenic realization. And after we worked on the scenic realization for a couple of days, we came back and said, okay, now we sing it without movement, and it wasn't possible anymore. They couldn't sing it anymore because they always mixed up the lines, and it was funny, it didn't work. We had to learn to sing it in choir formation again. Very funny. And of course, the emotions. This is seems to be a key word in scenic realizations. As I said, conductors always try to find imagery for the music. Singers try to put themselves into a certain mood to feel the emotions of a piece. So when the choir is allowed to move or do does a scenic realization, they can physically feel the emotion they want to create and communicate with the audience. So we could say movements could help finding their emotions. Another thing is that you always try to build up a peer group called choir, because you need commitment from your singers to the choir. So it is always the gain of every conductor or choir manager to build up a strong identification by the singers for the choir, or to say to create a team building, and group dynamic enhances learning. So this means if a group is strongly identifies themselves with a group, they learn faster and better. So I have made the experience that when the group is doing scenic realization, they much more come together, because they have to. They have to move like one organism. They have to use every senses to make sure they could do what they asked for. So the group dynamic is much stronger than in regular, let's say, regular choir rehearsals. And after you did such a thing like a scenic realization of a piece, maybe afterwards you will have some regular concerts, and I made the experience that there are effects on regular concerts afterwards, because singers learned how to put emotions on stage very easily. So they have a better stage presence. And they're open for unconventional approaches. So if maybe you're about to plan a concert in a church, let's say, it's easier for the conductor to ask the choir or the singers to do something unconventional. Let's say, come into the church like a flash mob, or do a circle around the audience, whatever. They are open to almost everything. Now, next question: where can I do it, or where should I do that? Venues. Luigi Nono said, music should wake up our ears, our eyes, and the human thought. And music quality of space is very important. In the history of music, new venues always evoked new music, e.g. opera houses, palaces, concert halls, churches. They evoked new music. And vice versa. The spatial quality of music evoked new venues. For example, the polychoral music of Venice, or spatial music of Edgar Varese in the middle of the last century. And again, spatial art. Music should question and deal with space. Burkhard Wallenfels said it. And now, interesting for us nowadays, contemporary music often needs suitable spaces, which means flexible sound. It is unusual to stand at the same place or for the whole concert for some music. And modern pieces needs some time to explore the room. Let's talk about 3D sound, or surrounding the audience by sound. A venue could create a third space we were talking about already, because audience will be put in a certain mood. I would like to give you 3 examples. For example, we did a concert, you see the picture of Brahms' Requiem in a living room. We invited the audience to come to a place which was huge enough to cover all the audience, and they were having food and they're having drinks during the Brahms Requiem. So it was, the meaning behind it was nowadays it's possible to hear a piece like Brahms' Requiem almost everywhere, because you have an MP3 player, you have your iPhone or iPod, iPad, whatever, and you can take it everywhere. You can listen to it in the bus, on the train, on the toilet, wherever you want. The reception of music has changed. It's not only a concert hall where you can listen to music. And I think the younger generation is attracted of new venues. So we were trying to put classical music in new venues, like a living room, for example. Or when we did the realization of the Brahms Requiem, we were in a church, but we changed the way of staging, because where we put all the chairs outside the church and put the stage right at this place where the church were, the chairs were before, and where normally the choir is standing, we put the chairs for the audience. So just imagine you coming into a church which you know already, and you have your personal expectations of the concert, and you enter the church, and it's totally different setting. You will automatically put in a different mood, and your expectations will change. And another example, when we did our first production with Choreos, the choir, which we'll see later, we went to Berlin to the most famous techno club in the world, Berghain, to do the first production. And of course, techno club evokes different expectations or emotions for the audience. And they are much more sensitized when they enter such a building than a regular concert hall. So, and in addition to that, the 4D effect, let's say, is, which means participating with many senses, is possible with venues which are unusual or maybe just arranged a little bit different. So the listener can participate as a psychophysical wholeness, yeah, difficult word. And they are able to identify with the liquid modernity. What do I need to do? What do I need for such a production? Let's see the needs. First of all, you need a choir who's willing to do that. And this is not something which is easy, because some might not want to move, or some might be afraid to sing by heart without scores, and some might be afraid of physical closeness. When I asked my choir to do the Brahms Requiem, some refused to be part of it, because they said, I can't sing the whole piece by heart, it's impossible for me. Others said, okay, I love the Brahms Requiem and I have sang it several times, I know it almost by heart, but I don't want to move. So it might be difficult to convince your choir to do it. And this might be the first thing which you have to clear out. Of course, we were talking about it just before this session, that we need to interact with other professionals, like a choreographer. And you need a choreographer who understands what singers need and what singers can do while singing. He has to be aware what is working, what is singing doing with the body. And he has to find appropriate movements for the choir. And of course, you need appropriate music, which is also very difficult and important, because the balance between technical difficulties of figurative music and complex rhythm is important. Otherwise, maybe the choir couldn't do or realize a scenic realization. Sometimes you find a very beautiful piece, but it might be too complex to put it on stage in a scenic realization, because there's one important thing: the choir has to stay in contact with the conductor. And you know, in opera houses, there are different screens all over the stage to make sure the singers can see the conductor. But sometimes when you ask the choir, or the choreographer asks the choir to lie down on the floor and to lie on their back, it's difficult to see the conductor. And if the piece is too complex or too difficult, it might be impossible to do it. Umberto Eco said, the music should be like an open work, which means you have to find a piece which is an open work, which has the capability to do something else with it, not only to perform it like it's written, like a regular piece, but it should be an open work, so you can broadening the music. And this would be the next step, commission new music for this genre, which has no name, actually. Of course, we are trying to find words for it, like scenic realization, singing and movement, singing and dancing. But I made the experience when I was talking to people and explain what I was doing with my choir. Everyone said, "Okay, yes, I heard about some other projects like that," but everyone has his own opinion about it. And there's no word for it right now. So this is a new genre which has no word. And as I said before, venues in musical history evoked new music. So maybe a new genre could evoke new music. And I already talked to some composers, and for example, right when we were at Berghain with Choreos just 1.5 months ago, Emil Råberg, the Swedish composer, we made a piece, sang a piece of him, The Tiger. He came to Berlin and watched our realization of his piece. And he was very impressed, and I asked him whether he could imagine writing a piece for a genre like this. And he absolutely agreed, and he said he would write a little bit different than a regular choir piece. So I think the next step should be commission new music for this no-name genre. And of course, we need money to do it. We have to pay the choreographer, of course, he needs some money as he is a professional. We need lighting technology. This is what we already heard, what the Eurochoir did, but of course it is necessary. We need costumes and props and advertisement for the event, which is not, which is very, very, very important. And this leads to funding money, of course, because normally it's more than a choir could just afford. So funding money is the goal to do such a thing. Now, I'm almost at the end of my presentation, and I would like to show you the trailer of my recent choir called Choreos. After I did some other productions, which I just mentioned, I talked to my choreographer, Lars Scheibner, and we were thinking what could be the next step. And then we realized the next step to professional choirs to build up a new ensemble, which is just there to do this thing, singing and movement at the same time. So we did auditions and found singers from throughout Europe, brought them together to Greece on Crete. We were there to rehearse because we said we want to emphasize that what we are doing is nothing new, but was already done in the Greek antiquity. So we went back to a Greek island, Crete, and worked there for almost 3 weeks, and then came back to Germany and brought it on stage in Berlin. Flannery, she's sitting there, was part of it. She was one of our sopranos. She will tell her experience later. And we did a production called The Tiger, because the main poems of this production were texts by William Blake, the famous English poet. Yes, that's the word. And we mainly did Scandinavian music by Sven David Sandström, Jan Sandström, Emil Rohrbeck, which I mentioned before, and B. Tommy Anderson, and also a piece by John Tavener, who made this famous composition, The Lamb, which we also included in our production. Let me show you what we did. This way. Oops.
I will go alone to this island so I can learn to think without talking, to experience without sharing, and to love myself without you loving me.
Yes. I'll be open for your questions and comments, but before that, I would ask and invite Flannery to the stage, to the front, and give some of her experience with chorus. So, from a point of view of a singer.
Yes, microphone, yes. I was really happy that I got to participate in this project. And I must say, in the beginning, Stephan, actually, we met last year at the General Assembly, and he asked me if I wanted to join this program, and I must admit that my first motivation to do this was the 2 weeks on Crete. But now I'm just so happy that I got the chance to do this, because something that maybe was missing for the needs is you need time to do something like this, because we had 2 intense weeks where we were just rehearsing 8 hours a day, and the other time swimming in the water, and we got up at 7 in the morning to jump into the sea, and then 8 o'clock a physical warm-up for half an hour, and after that we got to have breakfast, and then we had 8 hours of rehearsal almost every day. It was really hard work, but we got to the 16 people that we were together. We really got to feel each other, to be like one person. You could, by the end of this whole performance, we really knew where everyone was, and the group was so incredibly tight, and this experience brings you so much together, and we had all muscles that we didn't know we'd have, because we were so moving so much, basically for 2.5 weeks constant, or 3 weeks constantly. So it was an amazing experience, and I can always advise everyone to do it, and I want to be part of it again, and also open for questions.
Thank you, Flannery. So if you have any questions to me or to Flannery, just ask. We try to answer. Yeah.
How did you find the money for 3 weeks?
Yeah, good question. Good question. There was a foundation. You saw it on the end of the trailer. There's a foundation in Osnabrück, which is there to support European projects in music and for the youth. So if you have projects, something like that, and it's European and it's together with the youth, it might be interesting for you to apply for funding. And maybe when I asked them, it was at the right moment, because the lady who founded the foundation was just recently died, and all of her money, private money, went to the foundation. So they, in the beginning, they had 2 million euro, and now they have 23 million euro. So they can do much more, and yeah, maybe that's why they were willing to give such amount of money. Huh? Yes, of course, and we did crowdfunding. Yeah, for 10,000 euro. Yeah, yeah, yep.
What I think interesting is the trailer. The sound we hear is not the same as the image.
Yes,
and
of course.
We understand that the sound is perfectly taken with the choir.
No, the sound was taken from the general rehearsal, and it was a run-through. It was not a studio recording, it was during their movement.
But I would like sometimes, for example, to understand how I can hear, for example, when the choir, some of the singers were back from the back to the audience, or in cycle and things like that.
Of course, it has an effect. Of course, if you sing to the front or to the back, and this what I was talking about, flexible sound. Sometimes it's for contemporary music, especially, you need a flexible sound. Even for instrumentalists, they play in different directions, and it has effects, of course. But when we were at Berghain and did our premiere, the audience were surrounding the stage. So they were not just in front, like you sitting in front of me. They were surrounding the stage, so they were able to hear from different positions. And they were able to change their position because there were no chairs. They were standing, so they were free to move.
That was maybe also a challenge. The stage was in the trailer. You see tape that was around the stage. We were like on 1 meter high, so the stage
This is the stage at Berghain, you see. Yeah. We were not allowed to take video at Berghain. We were only allowed to rent, to hire one photographer. So he was the only one who was allowed to take photos at the Berghain. They are very strict with it. Therefore, we had to do the recording in a different place without this stage. Yeah. Yeah.
You talk about movement and voice as your emotions, but then you also say that you need lighting and costumes, and that's costly, etc. How do you put that in the connection? Do you need lighting and costumes to talk to the emotions that you?
No, you don't need. But of course, putting something like that on stage requires something. If you be there, you can't. Just imagine you are like a regular choir. You put on your clothes and your maybe a suit with a tie. It won't work. So on the other hand, if you are in private clothing, it's also not working. Yeah, almost, but we set dark colors and so, yeah.
Why would it work? Because it doesn't speak in the same
It's
way?
easier if they are similar to feel they are a group. They are one organism. If they are two individual, you see individuals. So if you can make a connection between them, then you feel it's a group or one organism.
And we're still performers.
Yeah.
So if you do a performance, you go into also if you do normal choir performance, you would have a choir costume. So I think it's
So it's a choice. Or
Yes, but we did the cheapest thing we could do. We went on Crete. We went to the market and bought trousers and shirts for less than €10. So it was. Really. I was on a small tower. I'm not. Yeah, I think 6 meters away from the choir, in front of the stage. Yeah, higher than the audience. Yes. Daphne.
You said you did audition for the singers.
Mm-hmm.
Was this only about vocal quality, or did you also include?
Yeah, they had to do some scenic improvisations. They were told what to do, and then the choreographer was working with them. Yeah. Yes.
Auditions, they were, you had participants all over Europe,
Mm-hmm.
but the auditions were in one place?
Yes, we were asking them to come to Berlin because we thought Berlin is a place which could be reached easily from each country. Yeah, center of Europe.
wasn't then again also because there were also video auditions. Some people.
Yes, we also offered video auditions for those who are who live farther than 500 kilometers away. Yes.
Do you plan to perform it again?
Yes, we are trying to perform this production next year in different places, and the plan is for chorus to bring up every year a new production. So this is our first one, and for the next year we're trying to sell it. Yeah. Yes.
what about the audience reactions? How did the audience?
Yes, maybe I forgot to tell, because this made me think more into this direction, because the reaction were really, really, really strong. People were overwhelmed. There were so many people standing in the concert and just crying. And when you were asking them after the concert about their feelings and how did they experience such a concert, some of them couldn't even speak. They said, I don't know what to say, ask me tomorrow. So they were so deeply touched, and I never experienced such a reaction, despite Christmas concerts, maybe. And you sing Silent Night, Holy Night, of course, I also cry. But yes.
And do you think you also reached new audience also because of the venue, for example?
Yes, because of the venue, and of course we try to describe what we are doing, which is not easy, because it's not easy to find the right words of what we're doing, because most of them have never seen such a thing. And if you don't know how it could be, it's difficult to explain it. But we found new audience, even young people came. Yeah, it's true. Any other questions? And if you like, I could do a little encore, because I have an extract of the production, just one piece we sang by Sven David Sandström, so you can see how they move and sing at the same time, not only in the trailer, what you were asking there, the sound is not at the right place, so I will show you. Awake on North Wind from the Songs of Love by Sven David Sandström. Thank you very much. Let's have a coffee.
Oh, one thing.
Yeah.